1, 2, 3.
Vai, deve dar xuxa com a paura.
Yeah. If I translate this, are there any bad words in this? Again? Again? Okay, okay. Say cheese.
I saw her and she hit me like that. Saw that thing so beautiful. That she just hit my heart, oh. That full force and she got me like that.
There's a period when you're young when anything is possible. Your imagination is lucid, stimulated on life's simplest treasures like books and butterflies. As a child, mythology was my favorite escape from third grade stress. In my eyes, trips to the pool were voyages to the vibrant blue, rocky Mediterranean where Icarus fell from the sky and Aphrodite rose like a pearl from the foaming ocean. However, there is a period when you're older when you begin to separate fact from fantasy. My dream of voyaging across the sea to beautiful distant lands dissolved when new priorities emerged. Those stories stayed with me, even though they became unattainable pieces of fiction. Eventually, I found peace in understanding that the finances required for traveling were needed by my family elsewhere. Life's realities didn't stop to satisfy my childhood desires. I sacrificed the hope of burying my toes into the rocky Mediterranean, aligning the sea, until this year. The day I woke up in a quaint Athenian hotel room was the day I put my faith in miracles. I laid quietly in my bed the morning of Monday, March 11th, a changed woman. After spending hours in the clouds, I was about to begin the journey my younger self fantasized about. Unlike my storybooks revolving around century-old mythology, my story was unfolding in a part of Greece I was unfamiliar with. A metropolitan city sans the Greek gods and togas, yes, it's true. Walking about the city of Athens never granted me the sight of mythological creatures except for countless stray cats. Nevertheless, the experience somehow surpassed all my magical expectations. My first few hours in the city were spent at the cusp of heaven, high above Athens, standing on archaic architecture, the Parthenon. Visiting the site was a 360-degree experience. In one direction, my eyes were adorned with the ancient Doric features of the Parthenon and a view from the crown of Athens that transcended description waited in the other. I remember looking out into the sea of foreign houses. The pinch me I'm dreaming sensation wore off, and I relaxed into a reality I never believed was plausible. I left the US, I flew overseas, and I was standing right beneath the sky of Athens, Greece. In that moment of silent euphoria, I closed my eyes and made myself a promise. I promised to take some of this place back with me, as it was too beautiful to leave behind. The following are pieces of Greece that returned with me. Number 1. The sea. The water's edge is my favorite place in the universe, so it's no wonder that the Greek Ocean had the largest impression on me. I'd seen beaches before, but after laying my eyes on the vast, deep blue waters of Greece, I wondered if the Alabama beaches I knew could even share the same title. Our third day commenced with a scenic bus journey to the Temple of Poseidon at the Cape of Vesuvius. I remember driving up winding mountains high above the sea below. The ocean was so big. We were so small in comparison. No matter how high we drove, I never saw the end of the ocean. It was boundless. We drove for miles and still the ocean persisted. I gazed out the window of our tour bus, killing time by searching for the end of the Grecian Sea. Stress creeped up my shoulders as I tried to tackle the impossible task. After leaving the bus and reaching the top of the temple, nearly being dragged back down by the unnecessarily violent wind, I still subconsciously looked for the end of the sea, until a foaming wave crashing into a group of rocks meters beneath me stole my attention. It was beautiful. An image extracted from a movie scene, it seemed. The rocks glistened after the water retracted, and I swore a long-lost storybook memory emerged from my brain, reenacting itself on the water's rocky edge. There I learned true appreciation. Life is full of tasks. We are so driven by busyness that we forget to appreciate life's simplicities. Here I was, standing atop the antediluvian stones of Greece, subconsciously burdening myself with a pointless chore as if I'd forgotten how to relish. I shifted my focus from the ocean's untraceable end to the gorgeous wave patterns below. The Mediterranean taught me to enjoy life's small details. I'll tell that story to my kids one day. Number 2. Stained glass windows. Day 2 was a sea voyage to 3 Greek islands. After hours of drifting along the sea, my friend Andres and I planned a significant amount of walking for the last island to undo the numbness in our legs. Arriving at the dock of each island ignited a different kind of excitement. The eagerness I felt arriving at Aegina was laced with the thirst for adventure. It was the largest of our stops and looked like an islandy version of the village in the live-action Pinocchio movie. It was mildly bustling town, aligning the ocean with mopeds and small cars roaming the narrow streets. Andres and I couldn't wait to explore. In search of a notable monastery, we found ourselves far from the coast and deep within the town. Slowly, the tourist gift shops morphed into quaint joint houses and small gardens. Eventually, Andres and my conversation turned into silence as we took in the peaceful Aegean lifestyle. Civilians driving their habitual routes or walking their dogs gave us strange but warm stares as we entered the intimate parts of the island. Eventually, we spotted the first of many monasteries we would encounter in search of the famous one. Though this one was petite, its regal aura encouraged our entrance. As the door slid open, my expectation of other tourists admiring the space was invalidated. The setting was silent, except for a praying priest, a middle-aged man offering a flower at an altar, and a small old woman cleaning the luminous stained glass windows. I felt like I was absorbed into someone else's world. Hidden behind the busy, tourist-aroused coastline was a church where a man probably prayed every day for someone close, and an old woman performed her daily monastery cleaning duties. That moment reminded me of the definition of culture, people performing the same things for the same reasons in gorgeously different manners. I felt so gracious just to watch the woman clean the stained glass windows, as it reminded me of my great-grandmother's church miles away. I was amazed at how connected I felt to people in an environment I had never encountered before. It was a feeling I never want to lose. I've taken it with me in the rare case that I forget to admire the beautiful ways different people live. And number 3, yellow flowers. My last souvenir holds the most sentimental value. The process of its acquisition began the first day of our trip, but it snuggled its way into my possession on the last. That last day commenced with a lovely scene. My friends and I seated on the Temple of Delphi, staring into the beautiful abyss of Delphi, Greece. At first we shared no words, just mutual sighs that all meant, this is really the beginning of the end. I sat in the company of some of my favorite people in total quiet, the ancient mystic atmosphere making the moment feel ethereal. Then almost simultaneously we started to mention a memory from the trip, a jumble of words, breaking the silence followed by laughter of the weird coincidence. Only I believed it wasn't a coincidence at all. It was fate. It was fate that the specific ragtag group of people seated on those primeval steps attended this Greece trip. It was fate that we all had the urge to sit by one another, breathe it all in, and share our favorite highlights that morning. And it was definitely fate that my friend picked yellow flowers to take pictures with minutes after. Watching my friends laugh while holding indigenous flowers and listening to camera clicks was where I found my greatest takeaway. Our stories. Our moments. It's one thing to read about faraway fantasy lands, it's another to visit them, but the feeling of bringing 5 arsenals of memoirs back after you leave is what takes the cake. I somehow transcended the blockade of impossibilities. I traveled to a land I dreamed about since elementary school, but only because my friends were present was I able to return with it. Within them lives the memory of being chased through the streets of Athens by a little flower girl determined to get euros. In them lives the group of Italian boys I fell in love with at the apex of Parthenon. They hold the serene donkey rides through the village of Hydra Island and late-night strolls through Delphi under string lights. They contain the ugly clay sculptures we created in a pottery class and the rainy tour of Olympia. Their smiles while holding these yellow flowers were the happiest I'd seen them in months, and I was happy to be an arsenal and carry that little piece of Greece back with me for them. It's funny how traveling across the world can help you know yourself better. Bringing back little pieces of Greece changed the way I see the world at home. My little pieces of Greece have influenced the way I interact with my problems, social issues, and even my loved ones. The ancient oracles couldn't dictate one's fate until that person could know thyself. This trip has allowed me to view travel in the same way. There is no way to find your destiny until you know yourself, because these little pieces of Greece have defined pieces of my character. This trip has brought me inches closer to knowing myself better and respectively locating my destiny.